and I thought I would just start with a really quick overview of kind of our company, kind of the area in particular that this position would be in. And then I'll have a couple quick questions for you.
Okay,
I usually like
absolutely.
to kind of do my version of what we do. Because if you look at our website or Aspen Tech's website, it's it's not what the type of software we produce is kind of specialized. So
Oh,
I think sometimes
okay.
it helps to hear it from,
Okay,
and
yeah,
it
because
gets
when I was looking
sometimes nice
for it,
to
I said,
hear
well,
it
there's a lot of
from,
different stuff. And so I said, well, okay.
yes, yeah. So Aspen Tech is a software company, and we do a lot of industrial software solutions. So what we mean by that is um, really software that's used in kind of like specialty technology sectors. So a lot of Aspen Tech's core software has and the process of either getting around or through the kind of the factories and production that it takes to produce oil and gas like you would get for your car. The area that my group is in is we're called digital grid management. We were a privately owned company, formerly known as Open Systems International, and we were acquired by Aspen Tech in the last couple years, so we're kind of under their umbrella now. Um, we produce software that is used in the like energy area, but
Okay.
specifically, or at least our bread and butter customer, are utilities. So like Excel or not sure. I think you probably have Excel out in
We do.
Maplewood, but
We do.
yeah. So they're not a customer of ours, but they would be using a software like the one we produce.
You broke up for a little bit here.
That's used by a power company in particular to kind of control the generation, transmission, and distribution of power.
Okay.
So it has to do a lot with, or our software is integral with the power grid, and is used in like Excel uses their status system to one, make sure that they're generating appropriate amounts of power. Two, that they're getting it to the right areas that need it. And then distributing it down to like your home, to businesses, things of that nature. And so it's considered critical infrastructure. There's a lot of rules and regulations around how much energy, the reliability of that energy that a lot of our customers are under. What we do is we produce that software. So we have developers and a development group that are doing the code work, making all of it. Then we have a delivery organization that builds and delivers these systems.
Okay.
The way that we designed our software is it's very scalable. So it can be as small as like one server and doing maybe like a small city or a small area. And then it can go up to hundreds of servers and be serving or working with an area that's multi-states or countries. The Our delivery group really specializes in working with our customers to get those systems out in the field and to upgrade them and keep them current. And then we have customer support. That's the group that I work with. And our customer support group, I mean, it's kind of a little obvious, right? We're providing technical support, for these systems, working with our customers to make sure that they're getting the most out of their software, that if they're having issues, we're able to correct those, help them out. And then in the like rare cases that there is a significant system interruption or something that either our software is having issues or they're experiencing something where like there's a high push on our software, we're helping them in kind of those like critical scenarios, making sure that everything is able to work and get kind of keep things going. So we um, are kind of that like interface for them. This position, it isn't exactly, it's not a technical position, right?
Okay.
So you wouldn't be like on the phone, like trying to debug our software or anything. But we use our operations analysts in a couple different ways. So, one, when we have quite a few tickets coming in, quite a few requests for assistance. So this role helps us, like assign those out,
Okay.
evaluate the incoming requests, make sure that they're going out if anything's a priority, that we're getting attention on that quickly, especially if it's like a really significant issue. We want to be responding to those right away. And we use our analysts to help us keep an eye out for those. And also, we have customers calling in. So the engineers are working with them directly, but the analysts help serve as a, a triaging system. And
So like an
so,
ITIL, like an ITIL
as
environment.
in this role, kind of, yes. And so you get familiar with software, or at least the functionalities that customers are using, because that's kind of how you help assess and take in information from them for that triaging. And so that's a huge part of the role, is supporting kind of the day-to-day operations of the group. We are based in Medina, so that's where the DGM software kind of headquarters of that part is. Aspen Tech's headquarters are in Boston, but when we were a private company known as OSI, we were headquartered in Medina. And so we just still have the majority of our staff there.
Okay.
So in Medina, I have a group. We're a little bit under 30 people right now. And we're like that group is taking, the tickets, working on them, etc. We do have international customers, so we also have a handful of staff that are in other areas of the world that are working with customers in certain regions. Our North American support group, our Medina support group, kind of backs all those areas up. So
Okay.
the vast majority of our staff is in Medina, but we do have people in a couple different areas. So something to note. Besides kind of the ticket triage and all of that, then our operations analysts also help with some of our business processes that support our group. So that involves, we have certain authorizations and approvals that are circulating through the company when it comes to like a customer going live, and then support taking over when the project team is done and like taking ownership of that customer and that system, things like that. There's kind of the analyst role, or like that position will also kind of absorb a little bit of the kind of random things that will pop up, that we as a group need to solve, or will like help facilitate things with the engineers.
Okay.
So
So like a
that
liaison
is,
almost.
yeah, yep, yep. And it, there, because of the nature of supporting customers and the nature of, supporting kind of a critical infrastructure, there's always things that pop up, that we as a group kind of like work to accommodate or need to adjust, and the analysts are part of that group that kind of helps things shift. So that is kind of my nutshell version of what the position is.
Okay.
Um, do you have any quick questions about that
I do.
that I can help with? Mhm.
What would you say would be? I guess it was questions for later, but I might as well ask them now.
Yeah, go
What
ahead.
would you say would be the learning curve, of a position like this?
Yeah.
And what would you say are like the top three skill sets that a person would facilitate in a position such as?
So the learning curve is that's a very good question. The learning curve can be a little bit longer for, in general, our company, because, and especially in support or in the roles that are supporting some of this like very technical work, because it's so industry specific and it's so specialized and very unusual to really run into anybody that's ever worked around this stuff before. So a lot of the learning curve is one, our software, which is fairly complex, again, pretty specialized. Like you won't, it's all proprietary. So there's nothing, like none of our user guides or anything are on the internet. It's not really anything you can like look up very well. You might see a couple like demos for like really high level things, but because because it is critical infrastructure and it is um, so I don't know, like there's a big concern in the industry about cyber attacks. So
Right.
like there have been utilities, there's a very big, or utilities that have been attacked by cyber or have gone under cyber attack, and the impact of those are pretty high because they can cut off power. So in like 2018 was one of the like worst ones, was in not a, it wasn't our software, but Russia actually did a cyber attack on the Ukrainian power grid. Through their SCADA system, they got access to it and they shut down a lot of power throughout Ukraine in 2018. So
I
that
was just
is
gonna
kind of
ask
seen
about
as the
SCADA.
worst one.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
just gonna ask
yep.
about SCADA. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is kind of like so that it just in general, we keep a lot of the specifics about our software, how it works, things like that. Kind of we try to keep it within our customer base,
Yeah.
and we try to be, careful, which also is tricky then because it's not like people can work on learning it ahead of either being employed here or even customers, right? So if they're considering getting a system, or if somebody is like wanting to apply for a job at a customer using our software, if they've never seen it before or worked on it on a prior system, it's very difficult for them to really do anything besides learn on the job.
Yeah.
So the learning curve's a little, it's hard in that way. And that is across all positions, whether that's this role, even the support engineers, like they're not coming in with much exposure to this industry. So the learning curve there is always a little steep, but and I mean, like, it would probably be a couple months before we would like you can start working with tickets pretty quickly and like going through them, sitting in on meetings, things like that. But when it actually come to answering, like taking calls, doing things like that, would probably be like 3 to 6 months
Okay.
typically before we kind of put you in those spots, just so that you have time to get acclimated to what our company does, what we're talking about, the types of customers we work with. The skill sets that are particularly useful in this is communication is a big one, like written communication, verbal communication. Um, the there's a lot of both of that in our support organization, the way that, again, these systems are so secure that we're not, if we're logging in to take a look, it's often view only access. And so we're doing quite a bit based on the description and the data that they're sending to us. And not always doing remote sessions, or if we do remote sessions, it's not like we can make changes on that system. Um, the verbal is also like, because when you're talking to customers, like understanding and navigating their questions or what's going on, it's a big part of that. Um, the next skill would be flexibility is probably what I'm going to say. And I mean that in, yeah, like you've been around support quite a bit in your experience. So I think can appreciate like, you know, whatever your plan for the day is, there's usually going to be a couple things that pop up every day that
Absolutely.
you can't really account for.
Yeah.
And like I love that because it means every day is not boring
Stay on your
and you just
toes.
never know what's going to happen. Yep. Some people it's not their jam. And that can really throw them for a loop. So being flexible and adaptable is a big part of it. And then the third one, it isn't a requirement, or, it's not a requirement or anything, but I always think people are more, we're a technology company. So people
Yeah.
that are comfortable around technology, and are kind of interested and try to like pick things up when they're around them. I think it just makes things a lot easier.
Okay.
Um,
So is it
so those would be
so
my answers for that.
so is it a it's not a call center environment.
Not a call center.
Okay.
So that's a good question. I'll talk about that. So, um, the 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 nice part, I think, or what's more unusual, is that we are, like I said, it's so specialized, right? This industry is not huge. I mean, there aren't like millions of power producers in the world like that. So our customer base is actually pretty small. Um, so we have maybe 300 companies that we work with. Um, all of them will have a number of contacts that we talk to, but when we talk about the scale, it's much smaller. And that is beneficial because we form, and as a company, we build pretty in-depth relationships with our customers. So since there aren't like millions of them, um, at this point, I was at OSI, now with Aspen Tech. So I've been working here for almost 14 years, and I recognize a lot of the customers that we're talking to. And when we talk about specific companies or specific systems, I tend to remember, have they had any significant challenges? How comfortable are they with the technology? Things like that. So like you get to know them pretty well. Sometimes too well, like sometimes you learn too much about them, but so it's not it's a very different type of support environment. It's a very different customer service environment because you're not it's not somebody calling in like off the street or
Right.
anything like that. um the contacts that we're talking to, they've all gone through some type of training. They typically have a pretty rich technical background themselves. So we're often working with a customer's system admins. So there's almost like an assumed level of knowledge already. And um, yeah, so it's a lot of one of my old bosses used to call it like premium support environment, but everybody kind of gets it because it's just such a small customer base.
Right.
Um, and so I mean, in a way, yes, we're taking calls and answering them and working on tickets and stuff, but it is a lot more almost personalized a little bit.
Okay. Kind of reminds me of, when I was working on the Wells Fargo Gateway contract, we specifically had software developers calling in. So you're not going to get
Hmm.
somebody that just says, "Oh, I accidentally called and I was trying to order a
Yes,
pizza." You have people
yes,
questions
exactly.
specifically about the integration with the APIs. Does
Hmm.
Python work with this API? Um,
Hmm.
what information do I need to establish uh, the correct onboarding with like a lot of tickets I used to take happen to do with PKI. So they might have SSL questions because you would need
Hmm.
a public and a private key in order to complete the onboarding with the APIs. So we were using JIRA at that time, and um,
Hmm.
we would kind of deal with some of the software lifecycle management in that regard. And I had a little bit more experience at a different company with that, but that position, it was quite very much so specialized because you're
Hmm.
not dealing with, hey,
Yes,
well, can I get a password reset because I've been
correct,
watching Netflix.
correct.
We didn't deal with any of
Yes,
that, those kind of things. And the same thing,
yeah.
when I was working at Optum, dealing with API Postman and
Hmm.
the my chart standing up. That was
Hmm.
completely focused on those aspects. So
Right.
initially, when I applied for this position, I saw that for the
Hmm.
senior, the recruiter basically said, "Well, I'd be a better fit for this other one." And I was going to ask a
Hmm.
question in terms of upward mobility. Um,
Yeah.
when you guys saw my resume for
Hmm.
the senior position, um,
Hmm.
what can you speak to for this specific position that you're talking about?
Sure. Mhm.
What does the upward mobility at this country at this company look like?
Right. So there are kind of two paths. So this path is a little bit less on the technical side, but it is the most technical of the analyst positions. And so that's actually why I thought you would be a good fit because you have a lot of that background. When when we so one, there's a path up through that, which is on the kind of the business side of support. Um, and like moving into like we have a set of analysts. We have had three or four, like three sometimes. We've had some people leave, so we're down to one right now. Um, and then like upwards through that, being like a supervisor, things like that. A lot of
Okay.
what this role touches is our escalation methods, like escalating issues, talking to either the engineering groups to get assistance if we need expertise or more help, talking with development, making sure that they have the information that they need, maybe forcing a couple conversations to make sure they understand the problem that we're describing. We use JIRA internally with like
Okay.
development
Okay.
and stuff to submit issues.
Okay.
Um, um, so it's a lot of what I call the business side of support, where the support engineers are really deep into the technical side. Now, like I started as a coordinator, which is what this position used to be called, um, and have moved through the business side into more of a leadership position for our org. There's also the option to pivot, or would be an option if you were interested to, at some point apply or look into moving into the technical side as well, because this would give you a nice base for it. Uh,
Okay.
the so there'd be kind of two options, especially with the kind of background that you have, where I could see after getting kind of like your feet wet a little bit, and like pursuing if you wanted to shift into the technical path, I could see that in like probably a couple years if that's what you
Okay.
were kind of looking for. But
And that's what I
there's
was thinking of because, you
Mhm,
know, I primarily come from the infrastructure background. That's what kind of attracted me to
mhm,
this. And when I was looking at, especially with uh, when I was looking at what actually the software, the technology is,
mhm,
I was going to say MDM, and I forgot the abbreviation, but um, when I looked at it, I said, okay, this kind of looks similar to what I've been doing in that regard. And like the past couple of years, I've been dealing with primarily, coming from, because initially I started off doing a lot of desktop support, a lot of migrations and
mhm,
deployments, and then I kind of shifted into the system, to the EUC analyst and system administration. So moving away from like the basic password resets and just break
mhm,
fix and going into Citrix administration, and eventually I got into the CRM administration and data analyst slash business analyst.
mhm,
Even when I was working at Hiawatha Academy. So I kind of got to work with things like Infinite Campus, Salesforce, doing a lot of QA and testing,
mhm.
producing reports with workflows and dashboards and things of that nature. And then I started kind of moving towards like the business system analyst kind of aspect.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, no, so for that senior technical role, some of the things that we or like that we look for when we're hiring into that, I look for a very strong like computer science education background,
Okay.
sometimes into like because when we talk about the troubleshooting when it comes to our software, we have like hundreds of products that are used to build these systems. And so a lot of what the job is really a lot of it's actually understanding sometimes to the code level
Okay.
what is happening. And then also, especially for the senior role, if there's anybody that or like we do try to find somebody that has electrical background or specializes kind of in the not specializes, but has exposure in some way to the industry already. But so that's kind of why when I saw your resume, I thought you would be a really strong analyst that could easily pivot into the technical roles at some point if you are interested in that, um, because it does require um, it'll make more sense when you kind of see get into the meat and bones of what our software is.
Okay.
But it is fairly complex, I would say. It's
Pan's a Labyrinth. Have you ever seen that movie?
yeah, yes, yeah. It's very complex. It's capable of doing an awful lot. And so like um, we're combining a lot of knowledge. So understanding networking, understanding hardware, or picking up a lot of it's like we have to supplement and kind of round people out, but like understanding hardware, how that feeds into it, and then looking at the processes that are running that are needed for each of our many products, understanding how to monitor and check the health of them, how to debug them, when how the behavior, like what's being described, how we narrow in on how to build thing. It's
It's a
there's a
lot.
lot going
It's a
on.
lot.
There's a lot of components and stuff like that where it gets pretty beefy pretty quick. So
That sounds interesting because
um
I'm a thinking person. A lot of the stuff that I learned throughout the core of my career was self taught. When I kind of
mhm,
came into the game, it was I mean, when I was in high school, they had Napster and all this kind of stuff. And so, like when I was kind of coming out of high school, and actually during high school, I was building my own computers, and I was the only person in my
Hmm.
neighborhood doing it. So everybody would come to me when they had technical questions, or and back then they had what was it called? Comcast. It was called Paragon. So if
Hmm.
somebody had a question about their cable box, they just come, old lady might come knock on my door or whatnot, and then I would fix it. And it was a lot of the being real technical, or being more technical than other
Hmm.
people around, was kind of a gift and a curse, because they just figure, hey, well, it's called Derek, don't call Geek Squad. And I'm like, well, Geek Squad's charging you $400 or $500 to do it. Oh, well, but you
Yeah.
could do it. And I'm just like, well, and after a while I said, okay,
Are you gonna
y'all
give
got to
me?
start
Are you
paying
gonna
me.
pay me?
Yeah, you got to start paying me, because I didn't really realize how much I knew during that time. I was just kind of a
Hmm.
student of the game, and I'm looking at these books, and I'm building my own computer. So in their mind, they're looking at it like, okay, he's just a he's just a whiz kid. He's the wizard. So
Yeah.
he doesn't know that I went to Geek Squad first, and they told me
Hmm.
300-400, and then me, I'm just kind of getting my chops ready. So
Yeah.
I'm not charged. I'm not thinking of 300. I should have thought about it. I probably should have opened up my own,
I know. You
but
should have. You
I
should
should
have.
have. So I'm just doing it just on the house, because I feel bad, because their computer
Hmm.
is down,
That's how they get you.
and and
That's
and
how
they
they
got
get you.
me. People were getting me for a long time, because they guilt tripped me. Oh, you're not going to charge an old lady, are you? And I'm just like, well, you would go to Geek Squad, So after a while, I said,
Hmm.
okay, give me $100 or something, like, give me,
Yes.
So
Yeah. It's still a discount.
yeah,
It's
it's
still
a
a
super
deal.
discount, because I would be going above
Hmm.
and beyond. I'd be putting Fedora on people's computers, and I'd be, you
Yeah.
know, I would come to their house, and they do data backup in
Hmm.
there, and I go to Geek Squad, like, how much are they charging for this? And it's like $700 for every, because they data backup, they want 150 for this, they want that for this, they want that to put an AVG antivirus, they want that, and I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, I'm giving you $700 worth of value here. So
Hmm.
but I wanted it. I wanted to get
Yeah.
into technology, and I kind of came to an unconventional way. I went to CompUSA. They said you got to have your A plus. I didn't have it at that time, so I was wondering. I said, well, how
Hmm.
do I? And I just started printing out business cards, and that's when I started saying, okay, I need $100.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
But and business. I love that. And business cards. I was going to ask you, like, what I know that it says you're looking for something kind of long term, right?
Yes.
So, um, like, what do you think you're looking for in a place that would make it like long term for you? I guess, that besides like, I mean, like we have growth opportunities and all of that, but I guess, like, what do you think is going to be interesting, or like, what are you looking at that would be interesting for like long term? Does
State of
that
the
make
art
sense?
technology, a place where I could kind of
Mm-hmm.
come in and really get my hands dirty, and you know, especially
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to something like this. This is it's completely different to what I'm used to. But
Mm-hmm.
it's important. When it comes to the grid, that's kind of make or break.
Mm-hmm.
We just got to have it. I mean, if the grid
Yeah.
isn't good, then nothing's good. You're not going to be able to do anything
Mm-hmm.
whatsoever. So
Yeah.
um, I like an environment that can foster. I would like to say like an ego free team. Um, People
Mm-hmm.
where that they
Yeah, I
like
was gonna
humor.
say,
I don't know how you
yeah.
guys feel about Game of Thrones, but I'm a big Game of Thrones
Oh,
fan. Uh,
people love it. I mean, obviously, for like, because as an organization, right, there's only like 30 of us.
oh,
And so we're a pretty close knit group, meaning um, like we have different supervisors, but it's very normal for people to collaborate like across
okay.
groups and things like that. And the what's I gonna say? The being like working with customers so much, especially like ones our customers are very smart. But even they can have what I will call um we'll just call them like dumb moments.
Mhm.
And but obviously they don't want to admit that or anything. So working with customers like the way we do keeps you very humble. Um, all the time. They are like, but I will say, like, I say that, but one of the reasons why I think I've lasted so long and why, like, we have several people in my group that have been at this organization 10 or more years. Our lead support engineer has been here for more than 20, all in support. He's never moved to other groups, is because the customer base is so small that you might have somebody who's like stressed in the moment. They might get a little frustrated, but they're at their job. So they're still professional. They're still like the vast majority of our customers are very nice, very polite. Um, they're, like I said, it's a very unusual like support setting because we just don't have the number of like nobody is going to get like cursed out or anything
Oh, that's
here.
good.
Nobody, yeah, no,
That's good.
maybe once or twice a year we have somebody who gets like really heated. But it's not very common. At most we get like snarky comments in the ticket, but they're not like,
Outrageous.
yeah. Yeah,
Where you're
they're
just getting
snarky.
abused. Yeah, and I've seen
Yeah.
environments like that, and then and it's kind of sad because a lot of times that um, the technical field, the people that's on the phone, some companies just allow their employees to just get
Yes.
brutalized, and that's kind of a breath of fresh air. Um, I
Yeah,
mean, the
and
last
I
couple
will
of
say,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say, like, obviously there's like maybe once or twice a year. Like it's not that common that we really have issues like that, but um like it's important to me, it's important to our other kind of like senior members of the group that if that's going to happen, it's going to happen to like one of us. So like in those settings, if there is a really difficult customer or they're, like I said, most of the time it's because they are under a lot of stress and it is just making them act poorly. That, like, I'll take them, or Lincoln, who's our senior lead, he will take them. And that way it's not, you're not like hitting it all the, like it's really not that kind of an interaction. Um, and the funny thing is, of the times that I've really dealt with somebody when they're like really hot and calm, like managing that, I've almost always gotten an apology from them. um, which I also think is very rare anymore. And so that's the one thing for anybody who that I like to like kind of point out is you're still working with people, you're still working with customers. So you kind of, there's always going to be a little bit of risk for a little bit of pushback, but um, we also know who they are. That's
Okay.
the nice thing is like,
Yeah.
um, it's not as surprising, right? So it's not like you wouldn't already kind of have a heads up that they're a little testy or a little tough sometimes. Like we already know who they are. I already know who they are and
And those,
know who is somebody to watch out for.
and those some of those environments, especially like as you say, with smaller environments and stuff like. I've always had this ideology that you know small businesses or small teams tend to get a lot done. Um,
Mhm.
I figured that if you just have a stadium full of people, that doesn't mean you have a stadium full of
Correct.
fixes. So
Correct.
um, when I worked in, I kind of like that environment because, like even when I was doing managed services for as a Citrix administrator for Syntax, I would have some
Mhm.
people, they might come in, they might call in from like a government entity or whatnot, and then they'll know me by name because they only call when it's serious, and so most of the time, they're not calling just to say, oh well, my laptop. These
Correct.
aren't laptop questions. These are
Mhm.
server questions and things that have to do with the with Zen app and Zen server and things of that nature. So if somebody's calling, it's because maybe one of the file redirection services weren't working, maybe an actual because I kind of headed the managed service division in that regard. So it could be a
Mhm.
service on 2016 or 2008 R2. So I might get a guy that might call up and say, "Hey, did you see the game?" And now he knows that I don't watch sports, but he would say that to me just to mess with me sometimes like that. And so I kind of knew that he didn't
Yeah.
like sauerkraut sandwiches, and I said, "How was your
Mhm.
sauerkraut sandwich last night? Did your wife cook you
Yeah.
sauerkraut?" And he says, and so
Mhm.
but we'd have that rapport
Yeah.
because
Yep.
I've talked to him over
Mhm.
numerous, and then you have some people they just want to get straight to the point. They don't want to know about the weather.
Yes.
They don't want to,
Yep.
but I know who
Yep.
this guy is. So when he calls up, hey Derek,
Mhm.
all right, this is what's going on. He doesn't even want to say
Mhm.
hello. And now, but
Correct.
once the issue's
Yeah.
fixed, now he might want to have a little banter.
Mhm.
So I've been in those
Yep.
situations too. So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
And that's exactly kind of the setting where it's um like I said, sometimes you get to learn too much about them and that, like not really too much, but like they'll tell you if their boss is pushing them for something and that
Yeah.
they're trying to make it happen, or they'll also tell you if they're just trying to get something to like finish a project or finish something before they go on break.
Oh,
And so it's nice that when they're telling if it's nice to have that rapport with them because if it's not really urgent, right? But we're just trying to get it working before we go on vacation, that is a little bit easier than just, I need it now. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like it helps it. So, I know we're over time. Do you have any questions for me
Just
that we should touch on quick?
yeah, yeah. Could you say what the next steps look like
Mhm.
in this
Yep.
position, and also um well, you covered the teamwork a little bit. I don't think I'll ask that question. Um,
Yeah, we do have a big team environment, so that's
okay,
also kind of a nice thing. Nobody, not even Lincoln, nobody knows everything about everything because of the software and the versions we handle. So that's why it just is built in that we have to work with each other to help things out. The next steps are that I'll chat with Wendell after we finish here, and that the next step in the application process is to do like a more formal, like a panel interview,
okay,
where it would be like me and one of our supervisors that works for me, and we would do kind of a bit more specific interviewing.
okay, okay. All right. I guess the only final question that I have is, um, what is your expectations for someone in this position to come in within like the first
Yeah.
beyond the first 90 days, that 6 month to
Yeah.
9 month mark?
My goal for people in this role is that by the end of the first year that they are com- comfortable on the phones, taking calls, talking to customers, getting information from them, that they're comfortable like assigning engineers or like assigning tickets out to the engineers, or so we do a lot in teams and our teams chats and
Okay,
channels to
I use
like,
that a
hey,
lot
they're
too.
calling in and they need like it's like an urgent, so we need somebody quick. Like we have on call rotations, but like getting stuff brought, like kind of facilitating that, like getting the ticket to them. And then if they like the engineers will update teams as they work through things. And then if they're stuck, helping them find help. If they need to get to an estimate, like we have processes on how we escalate. But having people get comfortable in, okay, I mostly know what to do when when we hit a hurdle, right? Where do I go? Who am I going to talk to? All of those things. Um, and then comfortable with our ticketing system. So we use a ticketing system called Team Support. Comfortable with JIRA, which you already are. Our JIRA is a mess
Oh,
because JIRA, it's like so it's used across our DGM org and has been in use for a while. So it is, we added way too many custom fields, way too many customizations and scripting and all this stuff. So it takes a little bit to get used to our JIRA. But people that are comfortable in JIRA, at some point down the road, will be migrating out of our current ticketing system into Salesforce to use that as a ticketing system,
oh, I got some Salesforce
because that's
experience.
what, yeah, which is also good.
Maybe I can help with that.
Because yeah, the we've done I've done a migration between ticketing systems before, but most of that was like 7 years ago.
Mm,
So when we do the migration again, that's gonna there'll be plenty of stuff involved in that, but that's kind of what my goal is for the first year, is to get people where they're comfortable navigating the tools that we use, navigating our escalation processes, working with the engineers to make sure tickets are getting updated, all of that stuff.
okay.
What our more senior coordinators do, or when they're not, sorry, I use the old term for it. Um, and but what the more senior analysts start to do or have done is that they will um, be like kind of sitting in or attending. We'll have regular calls with some of our customers that are regularly submitting tickets. So those are usually
Okay.
bigger systems or systems that are undergoing a lot of change all the time. So we have calls with them every other week, whatever. And you would already be attending some of them. So like, so we
Okay.
have a lot of calls to cover. I like that, and I like to have an engineer and an analyst on the calls ideally, because it just helps for tracking what's going on, etc. The goal as as a more senior analyst is that you're able to potentially even drive those conversations. A lot of it is just about like ticket progress, ticket status, what's needed, and so it's like I said, it's it's not engineering technical where you have to know everything about the product,
But
but it's
process.
still a fairly, yeah, it's still a fairly like process or technical conversation, because we're talking about trouble tickets, we're talking about what our next steps are, is it with development, are we doing testing, all of that stuff. So
Okay.
that is what that would look like.
All right. Well, yeah, I really do appreciate your time, and I would really love to continue the
I
conversation.
think you froze. Hold on. You'll be
Yeah,
back in a sec. There we go. Okay.
it's I don't know if it's Teams or whatever. I looked at my Wi-Fi. Some of the bars were a little low, then they went back up. I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably with the video on and stuff. It
Yeah.
just
Yep.
takes
The
more.
video,
So
the
not too big
bandwidth.
of a deal. Yes, exactly. Okay, so other than that, we can probably wrap up. Sorry for going long, but I've
No problem.
really enjoyed talking with you, Derek. And then I'm gonna talk with Wendell and he'll reach out to you about next steps.
Okay. Thank you so much. I would love to continue this conversation. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for the time today, Derek. Have a good weekend.
You too. Take care.
All right, bye.
All right, y'all. So look, the bandwidth issue, that might have been something on my end, but sometimes with the video, sometimes you do have issue with the video and whatnot. So that's okay. Hopefully I got all of this um good with the screen capture and whatnot. I want to say this: it's good for people to explain some of the things they're able to do. Like they said, well, we're going over to Salesforce. We'll see. I've been a Salesforce administrator for about a year and a half. Then they say, oh, well, we're currently using JIRA. Well, I've been using that. I can help y'all out with that. See, those are key things. I applied for one position, but they were interested in having me do something for another one. Now, this is maybe about 30 miles out, but this is hybrid or whatever. And if I can kind of get close to what I want, I might just go ahead and roll. You know what I'm saying? I might just go ahead and roll with that. That's something that I'm considering doing. At first I was kind of like, oh, I don't know. But then, they're talking about the power grid. You see? So this is something that, yeah, AI ain't going to do nothing with. Tell you, not for a while. So I might be able to get in there and like I said, and then kind of work my way around, get my chops back up. I done took some serious falls, y'all, in 2024. A lot of people they don't want to mention some of their losses. They just want to mention the wins. No, I done had some big losses this year. So I'm trying to come back in there like Muhammad Ali and get it going. All right, I'm gonna upload this, y'all.